Fornander in the Polynesian race says, in Hawaiian, Pele is the fire goddess who dwells in volcanoes. In Samoan, Fi is a personage with nearly similar functions. In Tahitian, Pere is a volcano. These varieties of the name Pele, Fornander carries back also to the pre-Malay dialects of the Indian archipelago, where Pela means hot, belem to burn. Then he goes back still farther to the Celtic Bel or Belen. The sun god, the Spartan Bela the sun, and the Babylonian god, Bel. It might be worthwhile for some student of the Atlantic coast or Europe to find the derivation of the name Pele as applied to the explosive volcano of Martinique and note its apparent connection with the Pacific languages. In Rarotonga is found a legend which approaches the Hawaiian stories more nearly than any other from foreign sources. There, the great goddess of fire was named Mahuike, who was known throughout Polynesia as the divine guardian of fire. It was from her that Maui the demigod was represented by many legends as procuring fire for mankind. Her daughter, also a fire goddess, was Per, a name identical with the Hawaiian Pele, the letters L and R being interchangeable. This pair became angry and blew off the top of the island Fakarava. Earthquakes and explosions terrified the people. Mahuike tried to make Pere quiet down and finally drove her away. Pere leaped into the sea and fled to Waihi, Hawaii. A somewhat similar story comes in from Samoa. Mahuike, the god of fire in Samoa, drove his daughter away. This daughter passed under the ocean from Samoa to Nuihiwa. After establishing a volcano there, the spirit of unrest came upon her, and she again passed under the sea to the Hawaiian Islands, where she determined to stay forever. In Samoa, one of the fire gods, according to some authorities, was Fei, a name almost the same as Pele, yet nearly all the Samoan legends describe Fei as a cuttlefish possessing divine power and at enmity with fire. Percy Smith, who was for a long time Minister of Native Affairs in New Zealand and now is President of the Polynesian Society for Legendary and Historical Research, writes that the full name for Pele among the New Zealand Maoris is Para Wenua Mea, which through well-known letter changes is identical with the full Hawaiian name Pele Honua Mea. From several continued Pele stories in newspapers in the native language, about 1865, the following sketch of the Pele family is compiled. The god Ku, under the name Kuwaha Ilo, was the father. Haumea was the mother. Her father was a man-eater. Her mother was a precipice, i.e. belonged to the earth. Others say Kuwaha Ilo had neither father nor mother, but dwelt in the far-off heavens. This probably meant that he lived beyond the most distant boundary of the horizon. 2 daughters were born. The first, Namaka Okahai, was born from the breasts of Haumea. Pele was born from the thighs. After this, the brothers and sisters were given life by Haumea. Ka Moho Ali, the shark god, was born from the top of the head. He was the elder brother, the caretaker of the family, always self-denying and ready to answer any call from his relatives. Cain Hekili, Cain who had the thunder, was born from the mouth. Kawila Nui, who ruled the lightning, came from the flashing eyes of Haumea. Thus the family came from the arms, from the wrists, the palms of the hands, the fingers, the various joints, and even from the toes. A modern reader would think that Haumea, as Mother Earth, threw out her children in the natural outburst of earth forces, but it is extremely doubtful if the old Hawaiians had any such idea. Yet the expression that Haumea was a precipice might imply a misty feeling in that direction. The youngest of the family, Hiaka, in the bosom of Pele, was born an egg. After she had been carefully warmed and nourished by Pele, she became a beautiful child. When she grew into womanhood, she was the bravest, the most powerful, except Pele, and the most gentle and lovable of all the sisters. The names of the members of the Household of Fire are worth noting as revealing the Hawaiian recognition of the different forces of nature. Some said there were 40 sisters. One list gives only 4. They were almost all called the Haiakas. Ellis in 1823 said the name meant cloud holder. Fornander says it means twilight bearer. He conveys the idea of lifting on the hip and arms so as to make carrying easy. Aka means usually shadow, and pictures the long shadows of the clouds across the sky as evening comes. There is really no twilight worth mentioning in the Hawaiian Islands, and Hiaka would be better interpreted as lifting sunset shadows, or holding up the smoke clouds while their shadows fall over the fires of the crater, conveying the idea of firelight shining up under smoke clouds as they rise from the lake of fire. The Hyakas were shadow bearers. There were 8 well-known sisters: Hiaka Kapu Ena Ena, Hiaka of the Burning Taboo, known also as Hiaka Pua Ena Ena, Hiaka of the Burning Flower, and also as Hiaka Pu Ena Ena, Hiaka of the Burning Hills. Hiaka Wawahilani, Hiaka breaking the heavens for the heavy rain to fall. Hiaka Noho Lani, Hiaka dwelling in the skies. Hiaka Makole Wawahiwa Hiaka no breaker. Wawahiyaka the fire-eyed canoe breaker. Hiyaka Kayalawa Maka Hiyaka with quick glancing eyes. Hiyaka Kayayaya Hiyaka encircled by garlands of smoke clouds. Hiyaka Kayaka Pali O Peli Hiyaka in the bosom of Peli, who was known also as the young Hiaka. Some of the legends say that Kapo was one of Pele's sisters. Kapo was a vile, murderous poison goddess connected with the idea of praying to death, and in the better legends is dropped out of the Pele family. There were 11 well-known brothers: Kamoho Alii, the dragon or shark king; Panane Hekali, Kanane the thunderer; Tanane, Pohakuka, Tanane rolling stones or the earthquake maker; Kanane Hoalani, Kanane the divine fire maker; Kane Huli Honua, Kane turning the earth upside down in eruptions and earthquakes; Kane Kauila Nui, Kane who ruled the great lightning; Kane Huli Koa, Kane who broke coral reefs; Kapoha, Ikahiola, explosion in the place of life, i.e., fountains of bursting gas in the living fire; Kekua, a Kekapo, the rain in the night or the rain of fire more visible at night; Keoahikama, Kawa, the fire-thrusting child of war; Lono Makua, Lono the father who had charge of the crater and its fire. The Thunderer and the Child of War were said to be hunchbacks. According to the different legends, Pele had 4 husbands, each of whom lived with her for a time. 2 of these were with her in the ancient homes of the Hawaiians, Kwai, He, Lani, and Hapakuela. These husbands were Okale, Nui, Aiku, and Wahiloa. 2 husbands came to her while she dwelt in Kilauea, her palace of fire in the Hawaiian Islands. One was the rough Kamapua'a, the other was Lohaio, the handsome king of Kauai. 11 Pel's long sleep. Pele and her family dwelt in the beauty of Puna. On a certain day there was a fine, clear atmosphere, and Pele saw the splendid surf with its white crests, and proposed to her sisters to go down for bathing and surf riding. Pele, as the high chiefess of the family, first entered the water and swam far out, then returned, standing on the brink of the curling wave, for the very crest was her surfboard, which she rode with great skill. Sometimes her brother, Kamoali, the great shark god, in the form of a shark, would be her surfboard. Again and again she went out to the deep pit of the waves, her sisters causing the country inland to resound with their acclamation, for she rode as one born of the sea. At last she came to the beach and, telling the sisters that the taboo on swimming was lifted and they could enter upon their sport, went inland with her youngest sister Hiaka to watch while she slept. They went to a house thatched with ti leaves, a house built for the goddess. There Pele lay down, saying to her sister Hiaka, "I will sleep, giving up to the shadows of the falling evening, dropping into the very depths of slumber. Very hard will be this sleep. I am jealous of it. Therefore it is taboo. This is my command to you, O my little one. Wait you without arousing me 9 days and 8 nights, then call me and chant the hulihia, a chant supposed to bring life back and revive the body." Then Pele added, "Perhaps this sleep will be my journey to meet a man, our husband. If I shall meet my lover in my dreams, the sleep will be of great value. I will sleep." Hiaka moved softly about the head of her sister Pele, swaying a kahili fringed and beautiful. The perfume of the hala, the fragrance of kiao, clung to the walls of the house. From that time Puna has been famous as the land fragrant with perfume of the leaves and flowers of the hala tree. Whenever Pele slept, she lost the appearance which she usually assumed of a beautiful and glorious young woman, surpassing all the other women in the islands. Sleep brought out the aged hag that she really was. Always when any worshipper saw the group of sisters and Pele asleep in their midst, they saw a weary old woman lying in the firebed in the great crater. While Pele was sleeping, her spirit heard the sound of a hula drum skillfully played, accompanied by a chant sung by a wonderful voice. The spirit of Pele arose from her body and listened to that voice. She thought it was the hula of Laka, who was the goddess of the dance. Then she clearly heard male voices, strong and tender, and a great joy awoke within her, and she listened toward the east, but the hula was not there. Then westward, and there were the rich tones of the beaten drum and the chant. Pele's spirit cried, "The voice of love comes on the wind. I will go and meet it." Pele then forsook Keo and went to Hilo, but the drum was not there. She passed from place to place, led by the call of the drum and dance, following it along the palace precipices, and over the deep ravines, through forest shadows and along rocky beaches, until she came to the upper end of Hawaii. There she heard the call coming across the sea from the island Maui. Her spirit crossed the channel and listened again. The voices of the dance were louder and clearer and more beautiful. She passed on from island to island until she came to Kauai, and there the drum beat and the song of the dance did not die away or change, so she knew she had found the lover desired in her dream. Pele's spirit now put on the body of strong, healthful youth. Nor was there any blemish in her beauty and symmetry from head to foot. She was anointed with all the fragrant oils of Puna. Her dress was the splendid garland of the red lehua flower and male leaf and the fern from the dwelling places of the gods. The tender vines of the deep woods veiled this queen of the crater. In glorious young womanhood she went to the halau. The dark body of a great mist enveloped her. The drum and the voice had led her to Haina, Kauai, to the house of Lohiau, the high-born chief of that island. The house for dancing was long and was beautifully draped with mats of all kinds. It was full of chiefs engaged in the sports of that time. The common people were gathered outside the house of the chief. The multitude saw a glorious young woman step out of the mist. Then they raised a great shout, praising her with strong voices. It seemed as if the Queen of Sunrise had summoned the beauty of the morning to rest upon her. The countenance of Pele was like the clearest and gentlest moonlight. The people made a vacant space for the passage of this wonderful stranger, casting themselves on the ground before her. An ancient chant says, "Oh, the passing of that beautiful woman." Silent are the voices on the plain. No medley of the birds is in the forest. There is quiet, resting in peace. Pele entered the long house, passed by the place of the drums, and seated herself on a resting place of soft royal mats. The chiefs were astonished, and after a long time asked her if she came from the far-off sunrise of foreign lands. Pele replied, smiling, "Ka! I belong to Kauai." Lohio, the high chief, said, "O stranger, child of a journey, you speak in riddles. I know Kauai from harbor to clustered hills, and my eyes have never seen any woman like you." "Ka," said Pele, "the place where you did not stop, there I was." But Loheo refused her thought, and asked her to tell truly whence she had come. At last Pele acknowledged that she had come from Puna, Hawaii, the place beloved by the sunrise at Hihehea. The chiefs urged her to join them in a feast, but she refused, saying she had recently eaten and was satisfied, but she was hungry for the hula, the voices, and the drum. Then Lohio told her that her welcome was all that he could give. "For me is the island, inland, seaward, and all around Kauai. This is your place. The home you have in Puna you will think you see again in Kauai. The name of my house for you is Ha-Lau-Ola, Tree of Life." Pele replied, "The name of your house is beautiful. My home in Puna is Mole-Ola, Long Life. I will accept this house of yours." Lohio watched her while he partook of the feast with his chiefs, and she was resting on the couch of mats. He was thinking of her marvelous, restful beauty, as given in the ancient chant known as Le Mauna Loa. Lay of Mauna Loa, beautiful to look upon, the mountain honored by the winds, known by the peaceful motion, calm becomes the whirlwind, beautiful is the sun upon the plain. Dark leave the trees in the midst of the hot sun, heat rising from the face of the moist lava. The sunrise mist lying on the grass, free from the care of the strong wind. The bird returns to rest at Palau. He who owns the right to sleep is at Palau. I am alive for your love, for you indeed. Then Lohio proposed to his chiefs that he should take this beautiful chiefess from Kauai as his queen, and his thoughts seemed good to all. Turning to Pele, he offered himself as her husband and was accepted. Then Lohio arose and ordered the sports to cease while they all slept. Pele and Lohio were married and dwelt together several days according to the custom of the ancient time. After this time had passed, Lohio planned another great feast, and a day for the hula dance and the many sports of the people. When they came together, beautiful were the dances, and sweet the voices of Lohio and his Icane closest friend. 3 of the women of Kauai, who were known as the Guardians of Hyena, had come into the halau and taken their places near Lohio. The people greeted their coming with great applause, for they were very beautiful and were also possessed of supernatural power. Their beauty was like that of Pele save for the paleness of their skins, which had come from their power to appear in different forms according to their pleasure. They were female Mo'o, or dragons. Their human beauty was enhanced by their garments of ferns and leaves and flowers. Pele had told Lohio of their coming and had charged him in these words, "Remember, you have been set apart for me. Remember and know our companionship. Therefore I place upon you my law, Kekai Okia, cut off by the sea. Are you separated from all for me?" Lohio looked on these beautiful women. The chief of the women, Kilinoi, was the most interesting. She refused to eat while others partook of a feast before the dancing should begin, and sat watching carefully with large, bright, shining eyes, the face of Lohio, using magic power to make him pay attention to her charms. Pele did not wish these women to know her, so placed a shadow between them and her so that they looked upon her as through a mist. Some legends say that Pele danced the hula of the winds of Kauai, calling their names until strong winds blew and storms of rain beat upon the house in which the chiefs were assembled, driving the common people to their homes. There the chiefs took their hula drums and sat down, preparing to play for the dancers. Then up rose Kilino and, taking ferns and flowers from her skirts, made fragrant wreaths wherewith to crown Loheo and his fellow hula drummers, expecting the chief to see her beauty and take her for his companion. But the law of Pele was upon him, and he called to her for a chant before the dance should commence. Pele threw aside her shadow garments and came out clothed in her beautiful pa'u skirt and fragrant with the perfumes of Puna. She said, "It is not for me to give an Olioli Mele a chant for your native dance, but I will call the guardian winds of your islands, Nihau and Kauai I Olohio, and they will answer my call." Then she called for the gods who came to Hawaii, the gods of her old home, now known through all Polynesia, the great gods Lono and his brothers, coming in the winds of heaven. Then she called on all the noted winds of the island, Nihau, stating the directions from which they came, the points of land struck when they touched the island, and their gentleness or wrath, their weakness or power, and their helpfulness or destructiveness. For a long time she chanted, calling wind after wind, and while she sang, soft breezes blew around and through the house. Then came stronger winds whistling through the trees outside. As the voice of the singer rose or fell, so also danced the winds in strict harmony. While she sang, the people outside the house cried out, "The sea grows rough and white, the waves are tossed by strong winds and clouds are flying, the winds are gathering the clouds and twisting the heavens." But one of the dragon women sitting near Lohio said, "The noise you think is from the sea or rustling through the leaves of the trees is only the sound of the people talking outside the great building. Their murmur is like the voice of the wind." Then Pele chanted for the return of the winds to Nihau and its small islands, and the day was at peace as the voice of the singer softened toward the end of the chant. Hushed were the people, and wondering were the eyes turned upon Pele by the chiefs who were seated in the great halau. Pele leaned on her couch of soft mats and rested. Very angry was Kilano, the dragon woman. Full of fire were her eyes, and dark was her face with hot blood, but she only said, "You have seen Niha. Perhaps also you know the winds of Kauai." By giving this challenge, she thought she would overthrow the power of Pele over Lohiau. She did not know who Pele was, but supposed she was one of the women of high rank native to Kauai. Pele again chanted, calling for the guardian winds of the island Kauai. "O Kauai, great island of the Lehua, island moving in the ocean, island moving from Tahiti, let the winds rattle the branches to Hawaii, let them point to the eye of the sun. There is the wind of Kane at sunset, the hard night wind for Kauai." Then she called for kite-flying winds when the birds sport in the heavens, and the surf lies quiet on incoming waves. And then she sang of the winds Kolonahahe softly blowing, and the winds Hunahuna breaking into fragments, and the winds which carry the mist, the sprinkling shower, the falling rain, and the severe storm, the winds which touch the mountain-tops, and those which creep along the edge of the precipices, holding on by their fingers, and those which dash over the plains and along the sea-beach, blowing the waves into mist. Then she chanted how the caves in the seacoast were opened, and the guardians of the winds lifted their calabashes and let loose evil winds, angry and destructive, to sweep over the homes of the people and tear in pieces their fruit trees and houses. Then Pele's voice rang out while she made known the character of the beautiful dragon women, the guardians of the caves of Hena, calling them the mocking winds of Hena. The people did not understand, but the dragon women knew that Pele only needed to point them out as they sat near Lohio, to have all the chiefs cry out against them in scorn. Out of the house they rushed, fleeing back to their home in the caves. When Pele ceased chanting, winds without number began to come near, scraping over the land. The surf on the reef was roaring. The white sand of the beach rose up. Thunder followed the rolling, rumbling tongue of branching lightning. Mist crept over the precipices. Running water poured down the face of the cliffs. Red water and white water fled seaward, and the stormy heart of the ocean rose in tumbled heaps. The people rushed to their homes. The chiefs hastened from the house of pleasure. The feast and the day of dancing were broken up. Lohio said to Pele, "How great indeed have been your true words telling the evil of this day. Here have come the winds and destructive storms of Hyena. Truly this land has had evil today." When Pele had laid herself down on the soft mats of Puna for her long sleep, she had charged her little sister, who had been carried in her bosom, to wake her if she had not returned to life before 9 days were past. The days were almost through to the last moment when Lohiau lamented the evil which his land had felt. Then, as the winds died away and the last strong gust journeyed out toward the sea, Pele heard Hiaka's voice calling from the island, Hawaii in the magic chant Pele had told her to use to call her back to life. Hearing this arousing call, she bowed her head and wept. After a time, she said to Lohio, "It is not for me to remain here in pleasure with you. I must return because of the call of my sister. Your care is to obey my law, which is upon you. Calm will take the place of the storm, the winds will be quiet, the sea will ebb peacefully, cascades will murmur on the mountainsides, and sweet flowers will be among the leaves. I will send my little sister, then come quickly to my home in Puna." Hiaka knew that the time had come when she must arouse her goddess sister from that deep sleep, so she commenced the incantation which Pele told her to use. It would call the wandering spirit back to its home no matter where it might have gone. This incantation was known as Hulihia Ko, the current is turning. This was a call carried by the spirit power of the one who uttered it into faraway places to the very person for whom it was intended. The closing lines of the incantation were a personal appeal to Pele to awake. E Pele E. The Milky Way, the IA turns. E Pele E. The night changes. E Pele E. The red glow is on the island. E Pele E. The red dawn breaks. E Pele E. Shadows are cast by the sunlight. E Pele E. The sound of roaring is in your crater. E Pele E. The Uhiuha is in your crater. This means the sound of wash of lava is in the crater. E Pele E. Awake, arise, return. The spirit of Pele heard the wind, Naue, passing down to the sea, and soon came the call of Hiaka over the waters. Then she bowed down her head and wept. When Loheo saw the tears pouring down the face of his wife, he asked why, in this time of gladness, she wept. For a long time she did not reply. Then she spoke of the winds with which she had danced that night, the guardians of Nihau and Kauai, a people listening to her call under the ruler of all the winds, the great Lono dwelling on the waters. Then she said, "You are my husband, and I am your wife, but the call has come, and I cannot remain with you. I will return to my land, to the fragrant blossoms of the hala, but I will send one of my younger sisters to come after you. Before I forsook my land for Kauai, I put a charge upon my young sister to call me before 9 days and nights had passed. Now I hear this call, and I must not abide by the great longing of your thought." Then the Queen of Fire ceased speaking and began to be lost to Lohiau, who was marveling greatly at the fading away of his loved one. As Pele disappeared, peace came to him, and all the land of Kauai was filled with calm and rest. Pele's spirit passed at once to the body lying in the house thatched with tai leaves in Puna. Soon she arose and told Hiaka to call the sisters from the sea, and they would go inland. Then they gathered around the house in which Pele had slept. Pele told them they must dance the hula of the lifted tabu, and asked them one after the other to dance, but they all refused until she came to Hiaka, who had guarded her during her long sleep. Hiaka desired to go down to the beach and bathe with a friend, Hopoi, while the others went inland. Pele said, "You cannot go unless you first dance for the lifted tabu." Hiaka arose and danced gloriously before the hula god and chanted while she danced. Puna dances in the wind. The forest of Kiau is shaken. Hina moves quietly. There is motion on the beach of Nanahuki. The hulalia danced by the wife, dancing with the sea of Nanahuki. Perhaps this is a dance of love for the friend loved in the sleep. Pele rejoiced over the skill of her younger sister and was surprised by the chanted reference to the experiences at Haina. She granted permission to Hiaka to remain by the sea with her friend Hopo, bathing and surf riding until a messenger should be sent to call her home to Kilauea. Then Pele and the other sisters went inland. 12! H-O-Po-E, the dancing stone, moving back and forth in the wind, softly moving in the quiet breeze, rocking by the side of the sea. Ancient Hopo chant. On the southeastern seacoast of the island Hawaii, near a hamlet called Keau, is a large stone which was formerly so balanced that it could be easily moved. One of the severe earthquake shocks of the last century overthrew the stone, and it now lies a great black mass of lava rock near the seashore. This stone in the long ago was called by the natives Hopoe, because Hopo, the graceful dancer of Puna who taught Hiaka, the youngest sister of Pele, how to dance, was changed into this rock. The story of the jealousy and anger of Pele, which resulted in overwhelming Hopo in a flood of lava and placing her in the form of a balanced rock to dance by the sea to the music of the eternally moving surf, is a story which must be kept on record for the lovers of Hawaiian folklore. Pele had come from the islands of the South Seas and had found the Hawaiian Islands as they are at the present day. After visiting all the other islands, she settled in Puna, on the large island Hawaii. There she had her long sleep, in which she went to the island Kauai, and found her lover Lohiau, whom she promised to send for that he might come to her home in the volcano Kilauea. Pele called her sisters one by one and told them to go to Kauai, but they feared the uncertainty of Pele's jealousy and wrath and refused to go. At last she called for Hiaka, but she was down by the seashore with her friend Hopo. There in a beautiful garden spot grew the fine food plants of the old Hawaiians. They were Ohia's apples, and the brilliant red feathery blossoms of the lehua trees, and there grew the hala, from which sweet-scented skirts and mats were woven. Hopo was very graceful and knew all the dances of the ancient people. Hour after hour she taught Hiaka, the oldest hulas, dances known among the Hawaiians until Hiaka excelled in all beautiful motions of the human form. Hopo taught Hiaka how to make lace wreaths from the most fragrant and splendid flowers. Together they went out into the white-capped waves, bathing and swimming and seeking the fish of the coral caves. Thus they learned to have great love for each other. The girl from the South Seas promised to care for the Hawaiian girl whose home was in the midst of volcanic fires, and the Hawaiian gave pledge to aid and serve as best she could. Together they were making life happy when Pele called for Hiaka. Out from the fumes of the crater, echoing from hill to hill through Puna, rustling the leaves of the forest trees, that insistent voice came to the younger sister. Hiaka, by her magic power, quickly passed from the seashore to the volcano. Some of the native legends say that Pele had slept near the seashore where she had commenced to build a volcanic home for herself and her sisters, and that while longing for the coming of her lover Lohio, she had dug feverishly, throwing up hills and digging some of the many pit craters which are famous in the district of Puna. At last she determined to visit Ailau, the god residing in Kilauea, but he had fled from her, and she had taken his place and found a home in the earthquake, shaken pit of molten lava, leaping fire, and overwhelming sulfur smoke. Here she felt that her burning love could wait no longer, and she must send for Lohiau. To her came Hiaka, fresh from the clear waters of the sea, and covered with leis made by her friend Hopo. For a few minutes she stood before her sisters. Then untwisting the wreaths one by one, she danced until all the household seemed to be overcome by her grace and gladness. She sent the influence of her goodwill deep into the hearts of her sisters. Pele alone looked on with scowling, dissatisfied face. As soon as she could, she said to Hiaka, "Go far away, go to Kauai, get a husband for us, and bring him to Hawaii. Do not marry him, do not even embrace him. He is taboo to you. Go 40 days only, no longer for going or coming back." Hiaka looked upon the imperious goddess of fire and said, "That is right. I go after your husband, but I lay my charge upon you. You must take care of my lehua forest and not permit it to be injured. You may eat all other places of ours, but you must not touch my own lehua grove, my delight. You will be waiting here. Anger will arise in you. You will destroy inland, you will destroy toward the sea, but you must not touch my friend, my hopo. You will eat puna with your burning wrath, but you must not go near hopo." "This is my covenant with you, O Pele." Pele replied, "This is right. I will care for your forest and your friend. Go you for our husband." As Pele had charged Hiaka, so had Hiaka laid her commandment on Pele. Hiaka, like the other sisters, knew how uncertain Pele was in all her moods and how suddenly and unexpectedly her wrath would bring destruction upon anything appearing to oppose her. Therefore she laid upon Pele the responsibility of caring for and protecting Hopo. This was ceremonial oath taking between the two. Hiaka rose to prepare for the journey, but Pele's impatience at every moment's delay was so great that she forced Hiaka away without food or extra clothing. Hiaka slowly went forth, catching only a magic pa'u or skirt, which had the death-dealing power of flashing lightning. As she climbed the walls of the crater, she looked down on her sisters and chanted, "The traveler is ready to go for the loved one, the husband of the dream. I stand, I journey while you remain, O women with bowed heads. O my lehua forest, inland at Kaliu, the longing traveler journeys many days for the lover of the sweet dreams, for Lohio Ipo." Ancient Hiaka chant. When Pele heard this chant from the forgiving love of her little sister, she relented somewhat and gave Hiaka a portion of her divine power with which to wage battle against the demons and dragons and sorcerers innumerable whom she would meet in her journey, and also sent Pauopale, the woman of supernatural power, who cared for the ferns of all kinds around the volcano, to be her companion. As Hiaka went up to the highlands above the volcano, she looked down over Puna. Smoke from the volcano fell toward the sea, making dark the forest along the path to Kiau, where Hopo dwelt. Hiaka, with a heavy heart, went on her journey, fearing that this smoke might be prophetic of the wrath of the goddess of fire visited at the suggestion of some sudden jealousy or suspicion upon Hopo and her household. What the Hawaiians call mana, or supernatural power, able to manifest itself in many ways, had come upon Hiaka. She found this power growing within her as she overcame obstacle after obstacle in the progress of her journey. Thus Hiaka, from time to time as she passed over the mountains of the different islands, was able to look back over the dearly loved land of Puna. At last she saw the smoke, which had clouded the forests along the way to the home of her friend, grow darker and blacker and then change into the orange hues of outbreaking fire. She felt Pele's unfaithfulness and chanted, "Yellow grows the smoke of Ka'lua the crater, turning heavily toward the sea, turning against my Ikane bosom friend, coming near to my loved one, rising up, straight up, and going down from the pit." After many days had passed and she had found Lohio, she had another vision of Puna, and saw a great eruption of lava making desolate the land. There had been many hindrances to the progress of Hiaka, and she had been slow. The waiting and impatient goddess of fire became angry with her messenger and hurled lava from the pit crater down into the forests which she had promised to protect. Hiaka chanted, The smoke bends over Kaliu. I thought my lehuas were taboo. The birds of fire are eating them up. They are picking my lehuas until they are gone." Then from that far-off island of Kauai she looked over her burning forest toward the sea and again chanted, "O my friend of the steep ridges above Kiau, my friend who made garlands of the lehua blossoms of Kaliu, Hopo is driven away to the sea of Lanahiku." Fiercer and more devouring were the lava floods hurled out over the forest so loved by Hiiaka. Heavier were the earthquake shocks shaking all the country around the volcano. Then Hiiaka bowed her head and said, "Puna is shaking in the wind. Shaking is the hala grove of Kaiau. Tumbling are Hyena and Hopoe. Moving is the land. Moving is the sea." Thus, by her spirit power, she looked back to Hawaii and saw Puna devastated, and the land covered by the destructive floods of lava sent out by Pele. Hapaui was the last object of Pele's anger at her younger sister, but there was no escape. The slow torrent of lava surrounded the beach where Hapaui waited death. She placed the garlands Hiiaka had loved over her head and shoulders. She wore the finest skirts she had woven from lauhala leaves. She looked out over the death-dealing seas into which she could not flee, and then began the dance of death. There Pele's fires caught her but did not devour her. The angry goddess of fire took away her human life and gave her goblin power. Pele changed Hopo into a great block of lava and balanced it on the seashore. Thus Hopo was able to dance when the winds blew or the earth shook or some human hand touched her and disturbed her delicate poise. It is said that for centuries she has been the dancing stone of Puna. Hiiaka fulfilled her mission patiently and faithfully, bringing Lohiau even from a grave in which he had been placed back to life and at last presenting him before Pele, although all along the return journey she was filled with bitterness because of the injustice of Pele in dealing death to Hopo. 13. Hiiaka's battle with demons. Hiiaka, the youngest sister of Pele, the goddess of fire, is the central figure of many a beautiful Hawaiian myth. She was sent on a wearisome journey over all the islands to find Lohiau, the lover of Pele. Out of the fire pit of the volcano Kilauea she climbed, through a multitude of cracks and holes, out of which poured fumes of foul gases. She threaded her way until she stood on the highest plateau of lava the volcano had been able to build. Pele was impatient and angry at the slow progress of Hiiaka, and at patiently climbing along the rough way she relented and gave to her supernatural power to aid in overcoming great difficulties and a magic skirt which had the power of lightning in its folds. But she saw that this was not enough, so she called on the divine guardians of plants to come with garments and bear a burden of skirts with which to drape Hiiaka on her journey. At last the goddess of ferns, Pauopalea, came with a skirt of ferns which pleased Pele. It was thrown over Hiiaka, the most beautiful drapery which could be provided. Pauopalea was clothed with a network of most delicate ferns. She was noted because of her magic power over all the ferns of the forest, and for her skill in using the most graceful fronds for clothing and garlands. Pele ordered Pauopalea to go with Hiiaka as her kahu or guardian servant. She was very beautiful in her fern skirt and garland, but Hiiaka was of higher birth and nobler form, and was more royal in her beauty than her follower, the goddess of ferns. It was a queen of highest legendary honor, with one of her most worthy attendants setting forth on a strange quest through lands abounding in dangers and adventures. Everywhere in ancient Hawaii were ipas, kupuas, and moas. Ipas were the deformed inhabitants of the Hawaiian gnome land. They were twisted and defective in mind and body. They were the deceitful, treacherous fairies, living in the most beautiful places of the forest or glen, often appearing as human beings but always having some defect in some part of the body. Kupuas were gnomes or elves of supernatural power, able to appear in some nature form, as well as like a human being. Mo'os were the dragons of Hawaiian legends. They came to the Hawaiian Islands only as the legendary memories of the crocodiles and great snakes of the lands from which the first Hawaiian natives emigrated. Throughout Polynesia, the Mo'o or Moko remained for centuries in the minds of the natives of different island groups as their most dreadful enemy, living in deep pools and sluggish streams. Hiaka's first test of patient endurance came in a battle with the kupuas of a forest lying between the volcano and the ocean. The land of the island Hawaii slopes down from the raging fire pit, mile after mile through dense tropical forests and shining lava beds, until it enfolds, in black lava shores, the ceaselessly moving waters of the Bay of Hilo. In this forest dwelt Pana'ewa, a reptile man. He was very strong and could be animal or man as he desired, and could make the change in a moment. He watched the paths through the forest, hoping to catch strangers, robbing them and sometimes devouring them. Some he permitted to pass, but for others he made much trouble, bringing fog and rain and wind until the road was lost to them. He ruled all the evil forces of the forest above Hilo. Every wicked sprite who twisted vines to make men stumble over precipices or fall into deep lava caves was his servant. Every demon wind, every foul fiend dwelling in dangerous branches of falling trees, every wicked gnome whirling clouds of dust or fog and wrapping them around a traveler, in fact every living thing which could in any way injure a traveler, was his loyal subject. He was the Kupua chief of the vicious sprites and cruel elves of the forest above Hilo. Those who knew about Pana'ewa brought offerings of awa to drink, taro and red fish to eat, tapa for mats, and malos or girdles. Then the way was free from trouble. There were 2 bird brothers of Pana'ewa, very little birds, swift as a flash of lightning, giving notice of anyone coming through the forest of Pana'ewa. Hiaka, entering the forest, threw aside her fern robes, revealing her beautiful form. 2 birds flew around her and before her. One called to the other, "This is one of the women of Ka'lua, the pit." The other answered, "She's not as strong as Pana'ewa. Let us tell our brother." Hiaka heard the birds and laughed. Then she chanted, and her voice rang through all the forest. "Pana'ewa is a great lehua island, a forest of Ohia's inland. Fallen are the red flowers of the lehua, spoiled are the red apples of the Ohia. Bald is the head of Pana'ewa, smoke is over the land, the fire is burning." Translated from a Hiaka chant. Hiaka hoped to make Pana'ewa angry by reminding him of seasons of destruction by lava eruptions, which left bald lava spots in the midst of the upland forest. Pana'ewa, roused by his bird watchmen and stirred by the taunt of Hiaka, said, "This is Hiaka who shall be killed by me. I will swallow her. There is no road for her to pass." The old Hawaiians said that Pana'ewa had many bodies. He attacked Hiaka in his fog body, Kino Ohu, and threw around her his twisting fog arms, chilling her and choking her and blinding her. He wrapped her in the severe cold mantle of heavy mists. Hiaka told her friend to hold fast to her girdle while she led the way, sweeping aside the fog with her magic skirt. Then Pana'ewa took his body, called the bitter rain, Ua'awa, the cold, freezing rain which pinches and shrivels the skin. He called also for the strong winds to bend down trees and smite his enemy and lie in tangled masses in her path. So the way was hard. Hiaka swiftly swept her lightning skirt up against the beating rain and drove it back. Again and again she struck against the fierce storm and against the destructive winds. Sometimes she was beaten back. Sometimes her arms were so weary that she could scarcely move her skirt, but she hurled it over and over against the storm until she drove it deeper into the forest and gained a little time for rest and renewal of strength. On she went into the tangled woods, and the gods of the forest rose up against her. They tangled her feet with vines, they struck her with branches of trees. The forest birds in multitudes screamed around her, dashed against her, tried to pick out her eyes and confuse her every effort. The god and his followers brought all their power and enchantments against Hiiaka. Hiiaka made an incantation against these enemies. Night is at Panaiwa, and bitter is the storm. The branches of the trees are bent down, rattling are the flowers and leaves of the lehua. Angrily growls the god Panaiwa, stirred up inside by his wrath. O Panaiwa, I give you hurt. Behold, I give the hard blows of battle. She told her friend to stay far back in the places already conquered, while she fought with a bamboo knife in one hand and her lightning skirt in the other. Harsh noises were on every hand. From each side she was beaten, and sometimes almost crushed under the weight of her opponents. Many she cut down with her bamboo knife, and many she struck with her lightning skirt. The two little birds flew over the battlefield and saw Hiiaka nearly dead from wounds and weariness, and their own gods of the forest lying as if asleep. They called to Panaiwa, "Our gods are tired from fighting, they sleep and rest." Panaiwa came and looked at them. He saw that they were dead without showing deep injury, and wondered how they had been killed. The bird said, "We saw her skirt moving against the gods, up and down, back and forth." Again the hosts of that forest gathered around the young chiefess. Again she struggled bitterly against the multitude of foes, but she was very, very tired, and her arms sometimes refused to lift her knife and skirt. The discouraged woman felt that the battle was going against her, so she called for Pele, the goddess of fire. Pele heard the noise of the conflict and the voice of her sister. She called for a body of her own servants to go down and fight the powerful kupua. The Hawaiian legends give the name Ho'aiku to these reinforcements. This means standing for food or devourers. Lightning storms were hurled against Panaiwa, flashing and cutting and eating all the gods of the forest. Hiiaka, in her weariness, sank down among the foes she had slain. The two little birds saw her fall and called to Panaiwa to go and take the one he had said he would swallow. He rushed to the place where she lay. She saw him coming and wearily arose to give battle once more. A great thunderstorm swept down on Panaiwa. As he had fought Hiiaka with the cold forest winds, so Pele fought him with the storms from the pit of fire. Lightning drove him down through the forest. A mighty rain filled the valleys with red water. The kupuas were swept down the riverbeds and out into the ocean, where Panaiwa and the remnant of his followers were devoured by sharks. The Ho'aiku, as the legends say, went down and swallowed Panaiwa, eating him up. Thus the land above Hilo became a safe place for the common people. To this day it is known by the name Panaiwa. 14. Hai, found Wahine, Omau. The story of the journey of the youngest sister of Pele, the goddess of volcanic fires, when seeking a husband for her oldest sister, has a simple and yet exceedingly human element in the incidents which cluster around the finding of a faithful follower and friend. It is a story of two girls attracted to each other by lovable qualities. Hiiaka was a goddess with an attendant from the old Hawaiian fairyland, the guardian of ferns. Then there was added the human helper, Wahine Omau, or the light-colored woman. While Hiiaka was journeying through the lower part of the forest which she had freed from demons, the guardian of ferns said, "I hear the grunting of a pig, but cannot tell whether it is before us or on one side." "Where is it, from the sea or inland?" Hiiaka said. "This is a pig from the sea. It is the humuhumu nukunukua pua. It is the grunting, angular pigfish. There is also a pig from the land." "There are two pigs. They are before us. They belong to a woman and are for a gift, a sacrifice to the sister goddess who is over us. 2. This is Wahine Omao." They walked on through the restful shadows of the forest, and soon met a beautiful woman carrying a little black pig and a striped angular fish. Humahuma means grunting. Nuku means cornered. Pua means pig. The Humahumu, Nuku. A pua was a fish with a sharp-pointed back, grunting like a pig. It was the fish into which the fabled demigod Kamapua changed himself when fleeing from the destructive fires of Pele. Hiaka greeted the stranger. "Love to you, O Wahine Omao." The woman replied, "It is strange that you two have my name while your eyes are unknown to me. What are your names and where do you go?" The sister of Pele concealed their names. "I am Ku, and Ka is the name of my friend. A troublesome journey is before us beyond the waters of Hilo and the Kupwas demons, dwelling there and along the hard paths over the cliffs of the seacoast, even to the steady blowing winds of Kohala." The newcomer looked longingly into the eyes of the young chiefess and said, "I have a great desire for that troublesome journey, but this pig is a sacrifice for the goddess of the crater." "Shall I throw away the pig and go with you?" Hiaka told her to hurry on, saying, "If your purpose is strong to go with us, take your sacrifice pig to the woman of the pit, then come quickly after us. You will find us. While you go, say continually, 'Oku, Oka, Oku, Oka.' When you arrive at the pit, throw the pig down into the fire and return quickly, saying 'Oku, Oka,' until you find us." The woman said, "I will surely remember your words, but you are so beautiful and have such power that I think you are Pele. Take my pig now and end my trouble." Then she started to throw herself and her offerings on the ground before Hiaka. Hiaka forbade this and explained that the offering must be taken as had been vowed. Then the woman took her sacred gifts and went up through the woods to the crater, saying over and over, "O Ku, O Ka," all the time realizing that new activity and life were coming to her, and that she was moving as swiftly as the wind. In a little while she stood on the high point above the crater called Kalia, the place where birds rested. Before her lay a great circular plain, black-walled, full of burning lava leaping up in wonderful fire dances and boiling violently around a group of beautiful women. She called to Pele, "Ipele'i, here is my sacrifice, a pig. Ipele'i, here is my gift, a pig. Here is a pig for you, O goddess of the burning stones. Life for me, life for you." The flowers of fire wave gently. "Here is your pig." Amama. The woman threw the pig and the fish over the edge into the mystic fires beneath and leaned over, looking down into the deadliness of the fire and smoke which received the sacrifice. Flaming hands leaped up, caught the gifts, and drew them down under the red surface. But in a moment there was a rush upward of a fountain of lava, and hurled up with it she saw the body of the little black pig tossing in the changing jets of fire. Down it went again into the whirling, groaning fires of the underworld. Then she knew that the sacrifice had been accepted, and that she was free from her vow of service to Pele. Every taboo upon her free action had been removed, and she was free, free to do according to her own wish. Then she saw one of the women of the pit slowly changing into an old woman lying on a mat of fire apart from the others. It was Pele who was always growing more and more jealous and angry with Hiaka. Pele called from the pit of fire, "O woman, have you seen two travelers?" When she learned that they had been seen going on their journey, she charged her new worshipper to go with Hiaka and always spy upon her movements. Wahine Omao became angry and cried out, "When I came here I thought you were beautiful, with the glory of fire resting on you. Your sisters are beautiful, but you are a harsh old woman. Your eyes are red, your eyebrows and hair are burned. You are the woman with scorched eyelids." Then she ran from the crater, saying, "O Ku! O Ka!" Her feet seemed to be placed on a swift-moving cloud, and in a few moments she was dropped by the side of Hiaka. The three women, Hiaka, the powerful Pau Opale, the fairy of the ferns, and Wahine Omao, the brave and beautiful young woman of the forest, went on toward Hilo. They came to a grove of ohia, or native apple, trees, and the new friend begged them to rest for a little while in this place, for it was her father's home. Hiaka hesitated, saying, "I am afraid that you would entangle me, O friend. Someone is waiting below whom I must see. Our journey cannot end." "Ho," said the woman, "I intend not to stay. Stepping sideways was my thought to see my family dwelling in this house. Then journey on." They turned aside through the red-fruited tall ohia trees to a resting place called Papalauahi, or the fire-leaf of lava spread out flat like a board. This has always been a resting place for travelers coming across the island to Hilo Bay. There they greeted friends and rested, but Hiaka thought lovingly of another friend, Hopo, far dearer to her than anyone else. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Wahine Omao said, "Why do you weep, O friend?" The reply came, "Because of my friend who lives over by that sea far below us. The smoke of the fire anger of our sister lord is falling over toward my friend Hopo," Wahine Omao said. "One of our people truly lives over there. We know and love her well, but her name is Nana Hoki. The name is given because when looking at you, her eyes are like a cord pulling you to her." "Yes," said Hiaka, "that is her name. But for me she had the sweet-scented hala wreaths and the beautiful wreaths of the red blossoms of the lehua and baskets of the most delicious treasures of the sea. So my name for her is Hapo. The name Hapo may mean one encircled, as with lease, or wreaths, or as with loving arms, or possibly it might convey the idea of one set apart in a special class or company. Both thoughts might well be included in the deep love of the young goddess for a human friend. The time came for the three women to hasten on their way. The final alohas were said. The friends rubbed noses in the old Hawaiian way and went down to Hilo. Hiaka looked again from the upland over to the distant seacoast and wailed, "My journey opens to Kauai. Loving is my thought for my Akane, my bosom friend, Hopoe, my sweet-scented hala. Far where we go, broad is the land, perhaps Kauai is the end." Thus Hiaka sent her loving thoughts over forest and rugged lava plains to her dearest friend, even while she opened her heart to another friend, who served her with the utmost faithfulness and love all the rest of her eventful journey. 15. Hiaka. Catching. A ghost. Hiaka, the sister of Pele, and the goddess of ferns, and their new friend Wahine Omao, were hastening through the forests above the bay of Hilo. They came near a native house. Two girls were lying on a mat near the doorway. The girls saw the strangers, and with hearts full of hospitality cried, "O women strangers, stop at our house and eat. Here are dried fish and the kilu a little calabash full of poi, the native food." It was all the food the girls had, but they offered it gladly. Hiaka said, "One of us will stop and eat. 2 of us will pass on. We are not hungry." The truth was that Wahine Omao of the light skin needed food like anyone not possessing semi-divine powers. So Wahine Omao stopped and ate. She saw that the girls were Kupalikia, stirred up with anxiety, and asked them why they were troubled. "Our father," they said, "went to the sea to fish in the night and has not returned. We fear that he is in trouble." Hiaka heard the words and looked toward the sea. She saw the spirit of that man coming up from the beach with an ipu holoholona, a calabash for carrying fish lines, etc., in his hands. She charged the girls to listen carefully while she told them about their father, saying, "You must not let tears fall or wailing tones come into your voices. Your father has been drowned in the sea during the dark night. The canoe filled with water. The swift beating waters drove your father onto the reef of coral, and there his body lies. The spirit was returning home, but now sees strangers, and is turning aside. I will go and chase that spirit from place to place, until it goes back to the place where it left its house. The body's supposed to be dead. Let no one eat until my work is done." Hiaka looked again toward the sea. The spirit was wandering aimlessly from place to place with its calabash thrown over its shoulder. It was afraid to come near the strangers, and yet did not want to go back to the body. Hiaka hastened after the ghost and drove it toward the house where the girls were living. She checked it as it turned to either side and tried to dash away into the forest. She pushed it into the door and called the girls in. They saw the ghost as if it were the natural body. They wept and began to beseech Hiaka to bring him back to life. She told them she would try, but they must remember to keep the bundle of tears inside the eyes. She told them that the spirit must take her to the body, and they must wait until the rainbow colors of a divine chief came over their house. Then they would know that their father was alive. But if a heavy rain should fall, they would know he was not alive and need not restrain their cries. As Hiaka rose to pass out of the door, the ghost leaped and disappeared. Hiaka rushed out and saw the ghost run to the sea. She leaped after it and followed it to a great stone lying at the foot of a steep precipice. There the hyena, dead body, was lying. It was badly torn by the rough coral, and the face had been bitten by eels. Around it lay the broken pieces of the shattered canoe. Hiaka washed the body in the sea and then turned to look for the ghost, but it was running away as if carried by a whirlwind. Hiaka thrust out her strong hand of Kilauea. This meant her power as one of the divine family living in the fire of the volcano. She thrust forth this power and turned the spirit back to the place where the body was lying. She drove the ghost to the side of the body and ordered it to enter, but the ghost thought that it would be a brighter and happier life if it could be free among the blossoming trees and fragrant ferns of the forest, so tried again to slip away from the house in which it had lived. Hiaka slapped the ghost back against the body and told it to go in at the bottom of a foot. She slapped the feet again and again, but it was very hard to push the ghost inside. It tried to come out as fast as Hiaka pushed it in. Then Hiaka uttered an incantation while she struck the feet and limbs. The incantation was a call for the gift of life from her friends of the volcano. Oh, the top of Kilauea! Oh, the 5 ledges of the pit, the taboo fire of the woman! When the heavens shake, when the earth cracks open, earthquakes, man is thrown down, lying on the ground. The lightning of Cain, a great god, wakes up. Cain of the night, going fast. My sleep is broken up. Allah, wake up. The heaven wakes up. The earth inland is awake. The sea is awake. Awake you. Here am I. Amama, the prayer is done. By the time this chant was ended, Hiaka had forced the ghost up to the hips. There was a hard struggle, the ghost trying to go back and yet yielding to the slapping and going further and further into the body. Then Hiaka put forth her hand and took fresh water, pouring it over the body, chanting again, "I make you grow, O Cain. Hiaka is the prophet. This work is hers. She makes the growth. Here is the water of life. Alai, awake, arise, let life return. The taboo of death is over, it is lifted, it has flown away." Amama. These were ancient chants for the restoration of life. All this time she was slapping and pounding the spirit into the body. It had gone up as far as the chest. Then she took more fresh water and poured it over the eyes, dashing it into the face. The ghost leaped up to the mouth and eyes. Choking noises were made. The eyes opened faintly and closed again, but the ghost was entirely in the body. Slowly life returned. The lips opened and breath came back. The healing power of Hiyaka restored the places wounded by coral rocks and bitten by eels. Then she asked him how he had been overcome. He told her he had been fishing when a great kupua came in the form of a mighty wave falling upon the boat, filling it full of water. The fisherman said that he had tried to bail the water out of his canoe when it was hurled down into the coral caves, and he knew nothing more until the warm sun shone in his face and his eyes opened. Hiyaka told him to stand up, and putting out her strong hand lifted him to his feet. He stood shaking and trembling, trying to move his feet. Little by little the power of life came back, and he walked slowly to his house. Hiyaka called for the glory of a divine chief to shine around them. Among the ancient Hawaiians, it was believed that the eyes of prophets could tell the very family to which a high chief belonged by the color or peculiar appearance of the light around the individual even when a long distance away. Thus the watching anxious girls and the friends of Hiyaka knew that the ghost had gone back into the body and the fisherman had been brought back to life. 16. Hiiak and the Seacoast Kupuas. Kupuas were legendary monsters which could change themselves into human beings at will. They were said to have come from far-off lands with the early settlers. They had descendants who lived along the seacoast or in out-of-the-way places inland. They were always ready to destroy and often devour any strangers passing near them. Frequently they were sharks which had a shark mouth, although appearing like men. This mouth was between the shoulders and was concealed by a cape thrown carefully over the back. As human beings, they would mingle with their fellows and go out in the sea, bathing and surf riding, but when they went into the water, they would dive under, assume their shark form, and catch some one of the bathers. They would carry the body to some underwater cave where it could be devoured. All other sea monsters were given human qualities. Some were helpful to men and some were destructive. Fabled monsters lived on land. Some of these were gigantic lizards, probably the legendary memory of the crocodiles of their ancient home in India. Some were the great clouds floating in the heavens. Peculiar rocks, trees, precipices, waterfalls, birds, indeed everything with or without life might be given human and supernatural power and called kupuas. After a time, various objects began to have worshippers who became priests supposed to be endowed with the qualities of the objects worshipped. These, in the later days, have been considered sorcerers or witches, receiving the name kupuas. Makaukiu Hiyaka, the sister of Pele, the goddess of volcanoes, by her magic power, was able to find and destroy many of these mysterious monsters. She had 2 companions as she journeyed along the eastern coast of the island Hawaii. Their way was frequently very wearisome as they climbed down steep precipices into valleys and gulches and then had to climb up on the other side. In one valley, beautiful clear seawater invited the girls to bathe. 2 of them threw aside their tapa clothes and ran down to the beach. Hiyaka bade them wait, telling them this was the home of Makaukiu, a very ferocious monster. But the girls thought they could see any evil one if living in that pure, clear water, so they laughed at their friend and went to the edge of the water. Hiyaka took some fragrant ti leaves, made a little bundle, and threw it into the sea. The girls made ready to leap and swim, when suddenly Makaukiu appeared just below the surface, catching and shaking the leaves. The girls fled inland to higher ground, but Hiyaka stood at the edge of the sea. The sea monster tried to catch her in his great mouth. He lashed the water into foam, trying to strike her with his tail. He tried to wash her into the sea by pushing great whirling waves against her, but Hiyaka struck him with the mighty forces of lightning and fire which she had in her magic skirt. Soon he was dead, and his body floated on the water until the tides swept it out to sink in the deep sea. The place where this monster was slain was given his name and is still called the Swimming Hole of Makaukiu. Mashiki. The Hawaiians say that the desire for battle was burning in the heart of Hiaka, and she longed to kill Mahiki, who lived near Waipio Valley, one of the most beautiful of all the valleys of the Hawaiian Islands. Mahiki was a whirlwind. When he saw the girls coming, he fled inland, hiding himself in a cloud of dust. Whenever the girls came toward him, he fled swiftly to a new place. They could not catch and destroy him. As they were following the whirlwind, they heard someone calling. They stopped and found two persons without bones. The bodies were flesh, soft and yielding, yet of human form. Hiaka had pity on them, so she took the ribs of a long leaf and pushed them into the soft bodies, where they became bones. Then the two could stand. After a time, they could use their new bones in their legs and walk. Pillai and No-Ho. Hiaka remembered that there were two dragons in the river. Wailuku, a river of swift cascades and beautiful waterfalls near Hilo, so she turned back, filled with the wish to destroy them and free the people from that danger. At the place where the people crossed the river were two things which looked like large, flat logs tossing in the water. Any person wishing to cross the river would lay fish, sweet potatoes, and other kinds of food on the logs. When these things disappeared, the logs would act sometimes as a bridge and sometimes as a boat, taking those who had given presents across the river. These logs were the great tongues of the dragons, Pili, Amu, and No-Ho, Amu, i.e., the dragon Pili and the dragon No-Ho. Hiaka and her two companions came to the riverside. The travelers called for an open way across. One dragon said to the other, "Here comes one of our family." The other said, "What of that? She can cross if she pays. If she does not give our price, she shall not go over in this place." Hiaka ordered the dragons to prepare her way, but they refused. Then she taunted them as slaves, ordering them to bring vegetable food and fish. The dragons became angry and thrashed the water into whirlpools, trying to catch the travelers and pull them into the river. The people from far and near gathered to the place of this strange conflict. A chief laughed at Hiaka, saying, "These are dragon gods, and yet you dispute with them." Hiaka said, "Yes, they are dragon gods, but when I attack them, they will die." The chief offered to make any bet desired that she could not injure the dragons. Hiaka said, "I have no property, but I wager my body, my life, against your property that the dragons die." Then began a great conflict along the banks and in the swift waters. Hiaka struck the dragons with her magic skirt in which was concealed the divine power of lightning. They tried to escape, but Hiaka struck again and killed them, changing the bodies into blocks of stone. Then she called the chief, saying, "I have made the way safe for your people, and I give back your property and the land of the dragons." Hiaka and her friends turned north again and hastened to Waipio Valley to catch Mahiki, the demon of the whirlwind. He ran down to meet her and threw dust all over them, then fled inland to the mountains. Hiaka chanted, "I am above Waipio. My eyes look sharply down. I have gone along the path by the sea of Makaukiu, full flowing like the surf. I have seen Mahiki. I have seen that he is evil, evil, very evil indeed." Mo. Law. Then Hiaka thought of Mo, who was the great dragon god of the district Kohala. He had a great multitude of lesser gods as his servants. Hiaka clearly and sweetly called for the dragon gods to prepare a way for her, and also to bring gifts for herself and her companions. Mu answered, "You have no path through my lands unless you have great strength or can pay the price." Then began one of the great legendary battles of ancient Hawaiian folklore. Hiaka, throwing aside her flower wreaths and common clothes, took her lightning pa'u skirt and attacked Mulau. He fought her in his dragon form. He breathed fierce winds against her. He struck her with his swift-moving tail. He tried to catch her between his powerful jaws. He coiled and twisted and swiftly whirled about, trying to knock her down, but she beat him with her powerful hands in which dwelt some of the divine power of volcanoes. She struck his great body with her magic skirt in which dwelt the power of the lightning. Each pitted supernatural powers against the other. Each struck with magic force, and each threw out magic strength to ward off deadly blows. They became tired, very tired, and, turning away from each other, sought rest. Again they fought and again rested. Hiaka chanted an incantation or call for help. Mulao has a dart, of the wood of the Uhi-Uhi. A god is Mulao. Mulao is a god. This was a spirit call going out from Hiaka. It broke through the clouds hanging on the sides of the mountains. It pierced the long, long way to the crater of Kilauea. It roused the followers of the fire goddess. A host of destructive forces, swift as lightning, left the pit of fire to aid Hiaka. Meanwhile, Mulao had sent his people to spy out the condition of Hiaka. Then he called for all the reptile gods of his district to help him. He rallied all the gnomes and evil powers he could order to come to his aid and make a mighty attack. When the battle seemed to be going against her, suddenly the Ho'aiku men and the Ho'aika women, the destructive gnomes from the crater, broke in a storm upon Mulao and his demons. Oh, how the little people from the pit devoured and destroyed the dragon army. The slaughter of the reptile horde was quickly accomplished, and Hiaka soon saw the body of her enemy, the dragon god, trampled underfoot. When the god Mahiki saw that Mulao was slain and his army defeated, he raised a great cloud of dust and fled far off around the western side of the island. The whirlwind was one of the earth monsters which even the sister of the goddess of volcanoes could not destroy. Many were the evil demigods who tried to hinder Hiaka in her journey along the east coast of the island Hawaii. Sharks fought her from the seas. The gnomes and dragons of valley and forest tried to destroy her. Even birds of evil omen came into the fight against her, but she conquered and killed until the land was freed from its enemies and the people of the districts along the sea could journey in comparative safety. Pau-o-Palai, the goddess of ferns, met the chief of this land which had been freed from the power of the dragon. She saw him swimming in the sea and, forgetting her companions, leaped in to sport with him. They at once decided to be married. Then she turned aside to his new home, leaving Hiaka and Wahine Omao to go on after Lohiau, 17 Elohiau. The story of Hiaka's journey over the seas which surround the Hawaiian Islands and through dangers and perplexities cannot be fully told in the limits of these short stories. There are several versions, so only the substance of all can be given. On each island she slew dragons which had come from the ancient traditional home of the Polynesians, India. She destroyed many evil-minded gnomes and elves, fought the Omakuas and the demigods of land and sea, found the body of Lohiau put away in a cave and watched over by the dragon women who had been defeated by Pele when in her long sleep she chanted the songs of the winds of Kauai. She slew the guardians of the cave, carried the body to a house where she used powerful chants for restoration. She captured the wandering ghost of Lohiau and compelled it again to take up its home in the body, and then with Lohiau and Wahine Omao made the long journey to her home in the volcano. From the island of Hawaii to the island Kauai, and along the return journey, Hiaka's path was marked with experiences beneficial to the people whom she passed. This must all be left untold except the story of Lohiau's restoration to life and the conflict with Pele. As Hiaka and her friend came near the island, Kauai, Hiaka told Wahine Omao that Lohiau was dead and that she saw the spirit standing by the opening of a cave out on the Pali of Hyena. Then she chanted to Loheo, "The lehua is being covered by the sand. A little red flower remains on the plain. The body is hidden in the stones. The flower is lying in the path. Very useful is the water of Kaunu." Thus she told the ghost that she would give new life even as dew on a thirsty flower. They landed and met Lohiau's sisters and friends. Hiaka asked about the death of Lohiau, and one sister said, "His breath left him and the body became yellow." Hiaka said, "There was no real reason for death, but the two women dragons took his spirit and held it captive. I will try to bring him back. Great is the magic power and strength of the two dragons, and I am not a man, and may not win the victory. I will have something to eat, and then will go. You must establish a taboo for 20 days, and there must be quiet. No one can go to the mountains nor into the sea. You must have a house made of ti leaves for the dead body and make it very tight on all sides." The next day they made the house. Hiaka commanded that a door be made toward the east. Then Hiaka said, "Let us open the door of the house." When this was done, Hiaka said, "Tomorrow let the taboo be established on land and sea. Tomorrow we commence our work." She made arrangements to go to the cave in the precipice at dawn. Rain came down in floods, and a strong wind swept the face of the precipice. A fog clung fast to the hills. The water rushed in torrents to the sea. It was an evil journey to Lohiau. At sunrise they went on through the storm. Hiaka uttered this incantation. "Our halas greet the inland precipice, in the front of the calling hill. Let it call, you are calling to me. Here's the great hill outside. It is cold, cold for us."